Hello everyone, it's heroine here once again. So today I thought about bringing you this demo of a visual novel called Sinful Testament. And what I decided to do right now, it's like I just skip through all of the demos when I'm able, of course, just for me to have I don't know, maybe like an idea of how long it's going to take me, okay? And let me tell you, like this one seemed to be long. This is probably going to be a long demo. So let me tell you right now that we will see. I'll see until where I feel like it's okay for me to go, if I'm enjoying it or not, because as I've been saying lately, I don't want to be here for like 12 hours just doing a demo. So we'll see until where we're going to get, okay? Just like that. And this is from developer Haven of Souls. It's a title that it's still to be announced. I think it's a Russian one because they have Russian and English, so I do suppose it's a Russian one. And I read a bit of it, and it didn't seem like a bad translated one. So that's why I'm like, I think it's okay. I didn't saw nothing wrong with it. So because like I get at least I get like a ton of Russian ones that in terms of like it's like the Russian and the Chinese ones, they usually have like really bad translations because they just put it on an auto translate thing. But this one, it didn't seem it like that. Honestly, it didn't seem it like that. And this is an Otome visual novel in the 1920s crime noir setting. You have 6 romance routes in here, and you have like some thematic paths of redemption and fall, something like that. I think our guys are probably going to be like, those kind of like nasty guys, probably because you need to put it like, you need to think about it like the period of the prohibition and the blackmailing and all of it, So I do think they are going to be like the bad boys type, okay? And the story is like this. So Houston, Texas, 1925, a heroine from 2025 suddenly wakes up in the body of the daughter of a recently murdered crime boss. Instead of getting a second chance at life, she is handed over as compensation to a local gang known as the Devil's Six. To survive by someone else's rules, she can be a thing or a trophy. She has to become a player, bargain, maneuver, gather information, and decide who can be trusted with not only her freedom but her vulnerability too. She has one advantage no one around her has: memories of the future. That knowledge can be a weapon or the reason they start suspecting she's lying. 6 dangerous men, 7 deadly sins, criminal contracts, port streets, Houston's Chinatown, and laws that leave no room for naivety. Running away is not an option here. Your only chance is to negotiate for it or lose everything over a single wrong bet. Sinful Testament is a dark historical Otome visual novel set in criminal Houston, a world where weakness is sold, trust is bought, and mistakes are never forgiven. Any step can be the start of redemption or fall. So yes, I am going to be your host during this demo, and let me just say it as I usually say, or sometimes I forget to tell you, which is I'm not an English native speaker, so you will hear me like mispronouncing words a lot of times, and you've been warned about it, okay? Yeah, that's it. So let's start this. Yeah, that's why he's like saying continue his story, because I skipped through all of it. Um, yeah, I noticed that the font is kind of like tiny for me though. So prologue, the end is only the beginning. That evening, I stayed a little later than usual for my shift at the university library. After several hours spent shelving books, a pleasant tiredness lingered in my body, and there was a quiet, cozy satisfaction in knowing the day was over. I was in my third year, majoring in social cultural history. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can. And even though I still had not fully figured out what exactly I wanted to become, I genuinely enjoyed studying. Yeah, another thing that I wanted to tell you is that when you start the game, it has like a disclaimer that it's rated 18 plus, but in the Steam page is not marked for an adult audience. So I don't actually know if it's because of the blood and stuff like that. I don't actually know if it's because of that they put it a disclaimer saying that it's for a really mature audience, because I don't think you are going to have like that type of adult scenes in here. Okay, so as we go along I'll see it, but it's not marked in the Steam page as an adult kind of one. So I would say it's probably like 17 plus and not actually the 18 plus kind of rating, but we'll see it as we go along. Okay. So sociocultural history, my major at university, it's kind of the science of why people do what they do. About history, culture, customs, traditions, laws, religion, politics, holidays, and even everyday life, and how relationships worked in different eras. In lectures, they trained us to notice what's hidden behind a society's habits and rituals. Why, for example, it's totally normal in some places to fire a gun into the air at a wedding, while in others, you'll end up in jail for that. In short, it's about how history and culture shape people, and how people shape history and culture in return. To be honest, I didn't choose this major because I dreamed of becoming a historian or a museum curator. At the time, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and this field felt broad and flexible enough. On top of that, getting in really wasn't that hard. This one is like razored. Sometimes I think this useless major might actually turn out to be a superpower if I ever end up in the past. My days passed in a steady, peaceful rhythm filled with lectures, books, video games, and the occasional get-together with a couple of friends. Maybe some people would have found that boring, but it suited me just fine. Yeah, like the issue with these majors, and I know how it feels because I took a major that is very similar, which was related to culture and literature. In fact, when I started, I took a major in culture, but then we had like a thing that came to Europe, and they completely erased my major, and I even like some subjects that I had really high rates. They got erased too. I was like fuming during that time. And so I had to switch. I was obliged to switch because of that thing. It was an European thing. I was obliged to take something which was more akin to to a literature and culture mixed together, although it was majorly literature and not actually so much the culture, which was what I was looking for. In fact, I was looking for something more like this, the socio culture history, because I honestly like that, yeah, more than literature or even languages and all of it, you know. Yeah, the thing is like you take like these majors as our protagonist is saying, and it's like they kind of like have no value, because it's not that this is not needed, it's just that maybe, you know, maybe our education, I don't know, but maybe our education should be more focused into what is really needed. But building a world like that, you probably wouldn't want it, because it would probably be more like a communist type of world. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Which is like things are very going into what is needed. Do you understand? But in reality, it would actually make sense in terms of, I'm not saying this because I'm not a communist. I'm just saying this, that there are certain things that sometimes I look and I'm like, it makes sense. I mean, we should actually build I don't know, like a state, you know, where things are supposed to, you know, you should go to something that you like, of course, but there are things that are needed. What is the point of you passing like 5 years in college to get out and, yeah, I did what I wanted and now I cannot get a job? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So if things were more like directed into a way of like, we are in need, for instance, the things that we need the most is what we discarded. You know, electricians, those things that you used to have tons and nowadays you don't have, you know, and you don't have people with knowledge to even go to those fields. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So if things were planned, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people are going to say no because of politician views. But I'm not saying this because I feel like I connect with the communist views. What I'm saying is that there is a truth in this, which is we could gain, how to put it, we could gain a lot more with a type of filtering of education where we would have like real data telling us, you know, what we need right now is for this field. Do you feel like there is something within this field that you would be able to do, that you would like to do? Do you understand? Like maybe the education should be more like into that, because yeah, we all know what we like to do, but then what is the point of you taking that major and come out and not be able to even have a job and have money to buy food or pay your rent at the end of the month? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah, I am very happy that I ended up, I had the freedom, you know, like it's that thing of like, yeah, I had the freedom to choose whatever I wanted, but now I cannot do nothing with this, you know, like, so yeah, do not take me in the wrong way, which is like, this is just me thinking in a logical way of, maybe we would gain more by having something that was more not forceful, do you understand, but it was more like a guidance, like before you would choose a major, like a guidance of like, we have this data, this is what is needed the most right now. Do you think this is something, there is something in these fields that you feel like it could be like something that you would like to do? Because, you know, although things are in constant changing, what is needed now, it's not needed after a while. But I don't know, like maybe you could see like something that you could identify yourself with to actually be doing, than passing like years and years like and paying tons for your education, for you to come out and suddenly you are jobless, you know, you are jobless. So yeah, like it's because like we were talking about this major in here, and I was like, yeah, mine is kind of like close by, and you cannot get a job with this. Yeah, some people can. It's like 5 people in 100 or something like that. Do you understand? So it's like, yeah, and we have to deal with it. Let's continue, because there are days that I'm like this. I'm talking too much. Once I finished straightening up the books, I stepped out of the library and breathed in a cool night air with a quiet pleasure. The spring evening was surprisingly pleasant. A fresh breeze brushed gently against my face, and I found myself smiling. After making a small detour, I stopped by my favorite street side coffee stand to buy my usual cinnamon coffee, something that had long since become one of my simple little joys. With a hot cup in my hands, I headed back towards campus, enjoying the quiet of the city at night and the occasional sip of the fragrant drink. There was hardly anyone around. Now and then a car passed by, while the dim street lamps softened the darkness with their muted glow. Idle thoughts of future drifted lazily through my mind. Graduate from university, find a job, build a life for myself. For now, though, all of that still felt distant and a little vague. I had never longed for any kind of extraordinary life, content as I was with simple pleasures. To live quietly, peacefully, without upheaval, wasn't that happiness? That was what I believed. Never once suspected that this would be the last evening of my familiar quiet life. Suddenly a loud shout and the sound of struggle came from somewhere off to the side. I turned instinctively, trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. A few yards away, two guys were grappling with each other, shouting curses as they tried to settle something between them. Are you out of your mind? Give me my money back. One of them yelled, slamming the other back against the wall with his shoulder. Screw you, you're the one who owes me. The other shot back, swaying where he stood and clearly barely able to keep his balance. I rolled my eyes, turned away, and quickened my pace. New York was always full of scenes like that, and I had long since gotten used to staying out of other people's conflicts. So New York, a city in the US where I was born and spent most of my very quiet, not exactly thrilling life. For most people, New York is all about huge skyscrapers, a subway noise, endless crowds, and that feeling that somewhere nearby there's always something important going on. Everyone's always in a hurry, making plans, chasing dreams, trying to become someone. A city where nobody knows everyone, but it still feels like everyone's tied together by the same restless hustle. For me, though, New York feels a little different. It's early morning walks through almost empty streets when the world suddenly seems strangely quiet and you can actually hear your own thoughts. It's the warm glow of streetlights, my favorite coffee shop on the corner, the painfully familiar bookstores, and the university library where I work. It's a place where everything is so familiar, down to the last crack in the pavement, that it almost feels safe because of it. I've never really looked for grand, life-changing happiness. Here I like just walking home with a hot coffee in my hands, breathing in the cool air and thinking about tomorrow, which will look a lot like yesterday. In the city, it's easy to stay invisible, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. Maybe for someone, New York is a city of big chances, but for me, it's a city of small joy, quiet routines, and that constant feeling that all the really important all the really important things are always being left for later. But I had barely gone a few more steps when a sharp metallic click rang out behind me. My heart lurched painfully and my body went cold as I realized it was the sound of a pistol slide being wrecked. Pistol slide. I don't know if they needed to put all of this, but yeah, sure. The mechanism that puts a gun into firing mode and gets it ready to shoot, not the safety. Don't mix those up. The slide is the movable upper part of a pistol. You pull it back to chamber around and cock the hammer. That sharp metallic click is exactly the sound that makes your stomach drop. It's that classic metallic click movies love so much. In films, it always sounds absurdly loud, as if someone put a mic right up to it. In real life, it's much quieter, but also way more terrifying, especially when you realize the next sound will probably be a gunshot. It's simple. If the slide had just snapped back into place, it means someone's about to shoot, or at the very least, they really want to scare you. Back at university, we had an elective of the history of material culture, and one of the topics was weapons from different eras. So now I can confidently explain the difference between a slide and a safety, but honestly, that course never really grabbed me. All my knowledge is purely theoretical, and I'll very much like it to stay that way. I guess our professor would be pleased if he knew his lectures actually came in handy for someone, just not in the way he probably had in mind. Yeah, I wouldn't actually say that it's not loud because we didn't have like pistols in here. My grandfather used to sell guns. He had a shop at the capital, and he would sell like guns. And we had like at least we had a rifle, and it was very loud. It was extremely loud. But I don't know, like a pistol, I don't remember. I was very young, so I don't remember. It's been a really long time. The next thing I heard was a deafening gunshot tearing through the silence of the night. I did not even have time to understand what had happened. Something slammed hard into my back, knocking the hot coffee from my hands. The cup hit the pavement, splashing dark liquid across the ground beneath me. My knees gave out, and I slowly sank to the ground as a strange weakness spread through my entire body. The sounds around me suddenly turned muffled and far away, as if I had slipped beneath the surface of deep water. Damn it, what have you done? One of the guys shouted in panic, but his voice already sounded too distant and blurred for me to make out clearly. I collapsed face first onto the pavement, feeling something hot and sticky slowly pulling around me. It was my blood. It's kind of hard for you to think about like you were simply a victim of occasion. It's like, isn't it? It's like so sad when you think about it. Like imagine you passed your whole life being cautious to not cross the street when a car was coming, or like to not get into this type of like gang situations, to not, and suddenly like a car just freaking hits you out of nowhere because you were just passing by in there, and the car hit you, or you got like a shot from a gun or something. It's just like, don't you feel like it's so unfair that you're like, I was just like passing by, I was just like living my life, I was just like in here, and I was like a victim of the occasion. Do you understand? It's like so sad. It's so sad. It was my blood. Strangely enough, I felt no pain, only a slowly spreading emptiness and a growing indifference to everything around me. Darkness crowded my vision, and each breath grew heavier and further apart. I realized I was dying. Oh, by the way, one thing that I noticed is that this game has like those timed choices. Yes, I should probably keep like saving in here because I'm so bad with those things. And if we get like a bad ending, it's also bad too. The darkness was not as empty as I had expected. Somewhere within it, blurred images rose slowly to the surface, like fragments drifting through a heavy dream. My favorite book with its silly little bookmark. The warm glow of a lamp. My parents' voice. A fragment of an old song. The rich, familiar scent of cinnamon coffee. It's actually like really good for you if you, yeah, cinnamon coffee is really good for you for your health. It's good, cinnamon coffee. I cannot because I'm allergic to cinnamon. I wasn't, but because I have my inflammatory disease, like each year I end up having a new allergy to something. But yeah, it's good. It's actually healthy. Yes. I'm talking about black coffee, okay, not actually putting sugar and stuff in there. But cinnamon coffee is good. Yeah. Because cinnamon is an anti-inflammatory. Yeah, it's anti-inflammatory, but because my inflammatory disease is the way it is, like it overpasses like that thing, It's like that. So sad, honestly. Yeah, I'm not going to live long, I know. I have conscience about that. I have to deal with that every day of my life. But yeah. Skip, saving. It's just a prologue, but I tried to cling to those memories, but they kept slipping away, dissolving into the silence. People, habits, even my own name were fading into the darkness until all of it became a distant echo I could no longer recognize as myself. The harder I clung to the past, the more hopeless that darkness became. At some point, I felt that I was no longer there. Everything that had once made me who I was had been left behind on the other side of that invisible line. But if this truly was the end, then why was there still such a desperate, ferocious need to live burning inside of me? Despair seized me when I realized how absurdly my life had been cut short. I was only 20, I had not done anything meaningful yet, anything remarkable. I had simply lived, moving along the path laid out before me, hoping that one day everything would somehow fall into place on its own. I had always thought I did not need anything extraordinary. Yeah, like we have an idea of like we are like kind of like infinite, and when something happens in your life, and you have a conscious that you might die anytime, it's when you feel the most alive. I say this because I already passed by a really bad situation, which was cancer, and during when I was told the situation, I was devastated. But at the same time, it was like, I think we just live our lives. How to put it? We live our lives and we go on with our lives. And only when a situation kind of like alarms you to another situation that is, that may bring the end of your life, you feel very aware, like your body, your mind feels very aware, feels very alive. It's so stupid, but sometimes it's like you need something like this to actually wake up. Do you understand? It's like a wake up thing. And that's when you start feeling like you are very, very alive, and you need to live life. Until then you're just like a passerby doing your everyday thing, and yeah, it's like that. At the same time, you don't want to think about it most of the time. Like, I remember during that time, I just wanted to be working because I was like, I don't even want to think about this. It's so weird and stupid. Like, yeah, of course, everyone, my bosses during that time, they were like, just stay at home. And I was like, stay at home, I go crazy, Yeah, because you want to, you feel very alive, you want to do things, but at the same time, you don't want to think about it all the time because it's crazy. You reach a point where you're just like crying and you're just like crazy and depressive, and Yeah, it's more like that. But like, I'm saying this because she was like, oh, I didn't do nothing in my life. And you start like going like that, you know. I had always thought I did not need anything extraordinary. But only now, when it was already too late, did I realize how wrong I had been. With each passing moment, my consciousness slipped further away, sinking me deeper into the dark. The last thought to pass through my mind was a foolish regret, almost laughable in its simplicity. If I were given a second chance, I would want to live a proper life. So, reincarnation. It's basically a fantasy trope. You die and then, for some reason, wake up in a new or different body, usually somewhere in a parallel universe. In manga and novels, especially Japanese ones, it's called isekai, literally another world. And it's almost always an excuse to start over, fix your mistakes, get some magic powers, or at least run into your destined one. Reincarnation happens the moment some unknown higher power suddenly hands you a second chance. Except no one bothers to ask whether you even want it, and the terms are about as fair as a crooked lottery. It's supposed to be a new life, yet that constant nostalgia for the old one, never really lets go. And the main question is, who are you now? A ghost haunting someone else's fate, or the author of your own? Not only like this, not grey and pointless, but something vivid, something worth living. Maybe as a countess or a princess, like the heroines in those ridiculous manga I read in the spare time. Yeah, they would say it in another way, but I'm saying that the manga and all of it, I'm saying it in a more Western way, so you don't feel it so much. Japanese black and white comics I used to read all the time. For me, they were a way to escape reality, and at least for a little while. Slip into another world, usually way more insane and interesting than the one I was stuck in. They've got magic, adventures, romance, sometimes complete madness, and heroes with absolute impossible hairstyles. They're true. If reincarnation truly exists, then let this time at least be a life that is meaningful and unforgettable. You know, I think like you always want to do something that is meaningful and unforgettable, but sometimes we kind of tend to forget that it's the circumstances in life that also kind of restrict that. Okay, so sometimes you imagine like, oh, but you are going to be given another life. Yeah, but there are always like people around you, circumstances, things that are not going to allow you to actually do what you really want to do with your life. There are always like limits, you know. So, and it's good that we have limits. Otherwise, like you have like mad people out there that just like, I don't know, create a real chaos around us. But yeah, at the same time, it's like that. You always feel like, I want to be doing something meaningful. Yeah, like we all want to do something meaningful, but you know, circumstances in itself, sometimes you cannot. Sometimes you cannot actually live the life you wanted to live. It's like that. You don't have the health, you don't have the money, you don't have the power, you have other things going on around you, you know, like it's like that. Since time immemorial, guided by the unseen hand of fate, 7 chosen vessels of sin have gathered together, drawn to one another by a force beyond human understanding. It happens once in an age, and there are always exactly 7 of them, the 7 deadly sins, incarnated in human form. So, the 7 deadly sins. In Christian culture, and not only there, there's a special list called 7 deadly sins. It's basically a set of core human weaknesses that are treated as the foundation of every other sin, mess, and disaster. They've been making humanity's life miserable for centuries and seem capable of turning even the nicest people into real monsters. In these stories, even each sin is seen as its own seal or a personal cross to bear. One can never get enough wealth, another is always eaten up by envy, a third is just too tired to keep hoping, a fourth lives only for pleasure, a fifth burns in their own rage, a sixth never knows when to stop, and a seventh is so proud of themselves it feels like the whole world was created just for them. People say that if someone can't handle their sin, they lose not only their happiness but also themselves. Dramatic much, maybe, but what if this isn't just a religious metaphor and more of an actual mechanism quietly shaping people's fates? I think they are needed. Like, if you would ask me, could we like obliterate the 7 deadly sins? I would be like, we could, but we need them. Like, sins are also what makes us humans. Like, if you have an android and he's not going to have emotions, he's not going to have sins. He might actually sin anyway by doing things that in a logical way that are not presented with ethics and morals, so he might sin in a certain way. But it wouldn't be a sin in its real constitution, because a sin is connected to our part of the emotions, the emotions. But why would it be bad for us to completely be erased of sins? People look at sins as like a really bad thing, but sins have their good thing too in them. Like, sometimes you need to have ambition, envy to actually pursue something. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So we cannot look at sins as just like bad things. Sometimes they also have something which makes you kind of like have an objective in your life. Do you understand? So there is also a reason for these kind of like corrupted things, sins, to exist in ourselves, And I say this because I am I hate people that are extremely ambitious, and I hate people that are too much driven by wrath, and I hate, that. But we need, how to put it, it's like we need a little bit of all of those things, because otherwise we are devoid of wanting to do better, be proud of ourselves, trying to do something in our lives. They stimulate something in you too, which makes you want to be better. Do you understand? Like, they are part of our emotions because they also stimulate parts in you that makes you want to grow and be better than this, better than that. So we cannot condemn sins. They are part of us. And sins are also something that, as I said, kind of like detaches from a robot and an android and stuff like that. So that's not totally condemned sins. They have their own part too. Of course, we should not have those in extreme, and yes, they should be moderated by ideas of moral and ethics. But they should not be erased. They are part of us. They are what makes us human too, 7 fates, their threads woven into one, preparing to face an uneven judgment whose verdict will decide the fate of their souls and at times of the world itself. Each of the chosen bears the mark of their sin: greed, envy, despondency, lust, wrath, gluttony. Last comes pride, for there is no sin more grievous and more insidious than arrogance, and it is pride that closes the circle, gathering the others for the final feast of judgment. Yeah, like, imagine if you didn't have like some pride. Imagine there was like no pride, then we would be like all completely like devoid of any pride for ourselves too. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So like they are part of what constitutes a human being too. They are not good, but they are part, and they should inhabit us, because we say habit and we say inhabit. It's funny, like we say it in this way. And they should inhabit ourselves. Like no one is saying in large amounts, but in some amounts, okay? They makes us humans too. The seven sinners gather without knowing the roles they have been given, living and suffering, losing and finding one another in turn. They face trials, temptations, and pain until the hour of choice arrives, after which there will be no turning back. Such a meeting is never accidental. The more sins are drawn together, the stronger their dark flame becomes, devouring everything around them. Only the chosen themselves can decide whether they will overcome their sins and earn peace and happiness, or drown in darkness forever, becoming part of it and a punishment for the generations yet to come. And now the time has come once more. The last of the sinful souls born in pride has been found and awakened. The six sinners are already awaiting for her, which is probably us. The Legend of Seven. Sometimes I feel like I've heard a similar story before, maybe when I was a kid or in some half-forgotten dream. I can't remember the details, but there is something strange that keeps circling in my head. It's like somewhere out there, just beyond what people can wrap their minds around, there's some weird kind of testament. Maybe it's just fate playing around, but seven completely different people somehow keep ending up together again and again without even knowing why. Something binds them that's stronger than either friendship or hatred. People call them chosen, but it feels a lot more like a sentence. They are drawn to each other like pieces of a mosaic, and when the circle closes, the trial begins. No one ever knows in advance what it's going to be this time, a battle, a feast, or a judgment. If they manage to overcome themselves and their own sin, they can finally find some peace. But if nothing changes, it all just keeps repeating over and over, but only with different faces and in another life. The legend says there are always seven of them, but every now and then there's this tiny hint that other sins can join them as well. Kind of makes me wonder what exactly they mean by other sins. The kind people don't usually say out loud. I'm not really sure where all of these even came from. Maybe I just made it up. Or maybe someone really did tell me a story, but these ones, and I just forgot. But for some reason, it feels like this story is starting to hit a little too close to home. What fate has been prepared for them this time? You will live again, child of pride. Your role has yet to be played. The six are already waiting for you. You'll be the last. Yes, like sometimes you are here and you're like, I don't know, you're probably here like it's because my neighbors, I like, how do you call them? Like it's the curtains, or it's not curtains, it's the other thing that we have in the windows. And I don't remember the name of it, whatever, but that makes a lot of sound. I don't know, how do you say it? Like, it's not, blinds, like blinds, something. Hey, blinds, yeah, blinds. That's it. Or roller shutters. Okay, yeah, roller blinds. Yeah, it's blinds basically. Yeah, I was like, was it like blinds or something? Yeah, so the neighbors, like in the morning, they make a lot of noise with that. Yeah, so yeah, sometimes you hear it. Consciousness returned to me slowly, as if I were rising through thick black water. Men's voices echoed through the darkness, but none of them were familiar. I couldn't make out the words or even their tone, only a dull murmur blending with ache in my temples. The air was heavy, saturated with cigarette smoke, strong liquor, dust, and something else that made me want to cough, but I could barely even draw a breath. I tried to move, but my hands were pinned behind my back, bound tight with a rope. Rough cloth had been tied over my eyes and across my mouth. I had no idea where I was or what had happened to me. All I knew was that the panic inside me kept growing stronger with every passing second. I was sitting on something hard, probably a chair. My back had started aching almost immediately. Everything around me felt unreal, like a dream or the aftermath of a blow to the head. Only the crushing darkness and strange voices reached me as though through layers of cotton. Where am I? What's happening? I died, didn't I? I tried to remember what had happened before. Bright lights flashed before my eyes, a New York street at night, a sharp sudden pain, and then nothing. Nothing made sense. Even my own body felt strange, as if it didn't belong to me. My head rang. The voices sound distant, broken, impossible to make out, but little by little fragments of the speech started seeping through the pain. Damn him to hell. A dull thug rang out, as though someone had just slammed a hand against something wooden nearby. Why the hell did he kill him in the first place? We agreed he'll question Cortez first, but now that old bastard's taken all the information on the shipments to the grave with him. No point regretting it, Ray. The information about smuggling is gone. All we can do now is guess where he redirected the last shipment. So, smuggling. I first ran into this term back in lectures, then kept seeing it in news articles and history books. Smuggling is what you call moving goods across a border or inside a country by getting around the law. Usually, it's things you are not allowed to export, import, or sell at all: alcohol, weapons, drugs, works of art, and something even everyday goods if nobody paid a tax or duty on them. In history, smuggling almost always showed up wherever there are strict bans or very high taxes. Bans create demand, and demand gives birth to a black market. Sometimes smuggling ends up being the only way to survive in hard times, and sometimes it grows into part of a much bigger criminal system. Textbooks always stress that it's not just bad guys with crates at the border. Behind smuggling, there can be whole communities, clever schemes, technology, their own rules, and even a kind of honor. Either way, if there are restrictions somewhere, there will always be people who want to find a way around them. Yeah, like what I'm feeling is that I know that we are going to have a visual novel kind of thing in here. It's just that they are taking, like, I don't know, maybe half an hour or something, or even more, I don't even know, with showing us nothing. Did you already understood like this? There's like a lot of like narration, monologue, especially like because she's talking to herself, like a lot of monologue and no visualizing of nothing. Like I wouldn't say like this is like the best way to start a visual novel, but yeah, sure, like they did it like this, and it doesn't seem bad. It's just like there's a lot of like reading and no visual, you know. The second voice was calmer, but I could hear the disappointment in it. And why'd he drag this girl here anyway? Just extra trouble we don't need. A third voice spoke up, irritated, carrying a note of obvious annoyance and something almost boyishly sulky. The killer decided to bring her over as a compensation gift, claiming she might know something about her old man's affair. Compensation gift. Term from the field of interpersonal and business relationships that sometimes pops up in historical chronicles and books on criminal culture. Excuse me. By compensation gift, people basically mean not just a random nice gesture, but a kind of substitute or an attempt to partially make up for damage in a disputed situation. In business, family, or even criminal circles, it does not have to be something valuable or even wanted. More often, it's a mostly formal gesture. We lost something or failed to keep our promise, so instead we are handing you something else. A compensation gift can be an object, a service, money, or even a person. It all depends on the context, the status of the parties involved, and how serious the conflict is. At university, examples like these sometimes come up in cultural studies or history classes. For instance, how in medieval Europe princes would send each other presents after failed marriages or broken agreements. The idea is always the same: to smooth over the conflict, or at least signal an attempt to restore some kind of balance. Still, that seems rather unlikely, and considering the state she's in, I doubt she'll say anything at all. Apparently, he shot her father right in front of her, poor thing. Seems even that much shock was enough to make her lose the will to live. In this state, she's just a pretty doll. The last voice was cold and faintly amused, though not especially interested. By the way, aren't Lo and Lei coming today? Lo took off again, as usual. You know, he vanishes like clockwork once a month. And Lei's in Chinatown right now, said Madame Shen had some urgent business for him. After that, a brief silence settled over the room, as though each of them had sunk into his own thoughts. Or perhaps none of them wanted to be the one to speak next. I flinched, faintly at first and more sharply. Panic swallowed inside me like a rising wave. I jerked before remembering the ropes, and at once felt the cloth pull tight across my face, while the pressure beat even deeper into my wrists. That was when the owner of the sharpest, loudest voice noticed the sound I made. "Easy there, looks like our sleeping beauty is awake." The blindfold loosely slightly, and I felt someone step closer. His hand confidently pulled the cloth from my face. The dim light felt unbearably bright and stabbed at my eyes, forcing them shut. For a moment, everything dimmed before my eyes. I blinked and the world swam in blurred smears. Yeah, finally we have something. So I know there's like a choice right at the beginning, that's why I'm kind of like saving. And it's one of the time limit ones. I didn't even have time to take a breath before I saw his face. Sitting right across from me was a young man in strange clothes with a distinctly cowboy look to them. So, cowboy get up. People usually use this phrase for a particular style of clothing tied to the lifestyle of some American man in the late 19th or early 20th century. A typical set looks something like this: a wide-brimmed felt hat, a shirt, a vest or a dusty long coat, sturdy trousers, leather boots with a distinct cut, belts, sometimes a bandana around the neck or gloves. In pop culture, it's strongly associated with Western heroes, cattle drivers, trail hands, gunmen, and people from the American Southwest. But in reality, it was a practical, utilitarian style of clothing for hard physical work in the open air. True. Its main job is to protect you from the sun, dust, and potential injuries. Movies and books tend to romanticize the cowboy image. but in real life, this is just sturdy workwear for people who live or work far from the city, not a fashion statement. True. He was straddling a chair, leaning against its back, and there was something in the whole shape of him that radiated danger and absolute confidence. A mad grin played on his lips, and the sight of it sent a real chill through me. There was a gun in his hand. He raised it, and a dull glint of steel came to a stop mere inches from my face. The barrel swallowed everything else, the people, the light, even the room itself. I froze. Something in my chest gave away, my heart skipped a beat, then started pounding like mad. It felt as though the air had been cut in half. I couldn't draw a full breath, and every inhale scraped through me like glass. My fingers had gone numb from the ropes, my skin was sleek with sweat, and every muscle was drawn tight with strain. With every beat of my heart, a tremor ran through me from my stomach all the way up to my throat. The fear made me sick, pure and animal in a way I didn't think I'll ever know. He didn't look away, he stared straight into my eyes. There was mockery in his gaze, as if he already knew exactly what would happen next. I felt completely defenseless, like a toy in someone else's hands, a stranger's trophy that had already been given a prize. Well, so you did wake up after all, princess. His voice sounded especially sharp and alien in the stifling silence. Somewhere behind him, 3 more silhouettes came into view, dressed much the same. Amber, gold, and violet glints of eyes, and shadows of figures gone still as they watched. But for me, only he existed, and the steel poised at my face. My head roared, my thoughts tangled, and my body suddenly stopped obeying me. I couldn't scream or move. All I could do was lock my gaze on the gun as though it were the last anchor left in reality. I wanted to find anything that might explain where I was, but everything around me felt alien. And then, all at once, I noticed the hairs falling over my shoulders. It was too long, too fair, and carried a strange weight that had never belonged to me. As long as I can remember, I've always had a bob. This isn't my hair. And with that came the realization that this wasn't my body. My hands were slimmer, the curves of my body were different, and the unfamiliar clothes pressed in all the wrong places. I didn't know who I was anymore. None of it felt real, it felt like a nightmare with no way out. Everything inside me drew tight with fear, with a dull, hopeless terror and a mounting pain that was curdling into something wild and furious. I stopped trying to hold myself back. My hands jerked on their own, the ropes beat into my skin, but I barely felt the pain, only the heat in my chest and the urge to scream so they'll understand the full depth of my despair. What's going on? The scream tore out of my throat so raw that I barely recognized my own voice. Who are you? Where am I? I was gasping, my voice shaking, but I wasn't about to stay silent. I didn't understand anything, and that only made me scream even louder. Tears burned in my eyes, but I couldn't stop. The fear that had paralyzed me at first turned into reckless fury. What difference did it make what happened next? Everything around me felt alien and meaningless. I don't know anything. What are you talking about? What's smuggling? Are you all insane? Let me go right now. Say something at least. Explain what's happening here. I thrashed against the ropes, clenching my wrists until they ached, scraping them bloody against the coarse fibers. I wanted to either curl up in a corner or throw myself at these people. Anything just to make this madness stop. The 4 guys froze, clearly stunned by my reaction. The one holding the gun, from the scrapes of their conversation, seemed to be Ray. He slowly lowered it, staring at me in surprise. The others exchanged glances as if they had no idea how to react to a breakdown like this. Ray rose from his chair and strolled over to me, slicing through the ropes at my wrists with one quick flick of his knife. I immediately rubbed my numb hands, trying to get the blood flowing again. He picked up a revolver from the nearby table, deftly unloaded it, slipped a single bullet back in, and spun the cylinder with a metallic click. A revolver, one of the classic types of handheld firearms. Its main feature is a rotating cylinder that holds the cartridges, usually 6, but there are models with fewer or more. After each shot, the cylinder automatically turns, lining up the next round with the barrel. Unlike semi-automatic pistols, a revolver usually doesn't have a removable magazine. The upside is that it's mechanically simpler and more reliable if a round misfires. In movies and books, it often shows up as a symbol of the Wild West, high noon duels, or old detective stories. P.S. These days, police and the military don't use revolvers that often, but they are still popular with collectors and in shooting competitions. Then, unexpectedly, he held the weapon out to me, gripped first, wearing a predatory, almost unhinged smile. If you're feeling that bold and brave, go on, try your luck. If you get lucky, I'll let you go. The Russian roulette. A term that shows up both in fiction and in various popular myths about the 19th, 20th century criminal culture. The idea behind this game is pretty simple. You load only one round out of 6 into the revolver cylinder, spin it, press the muzzle to your temple, and pull the trigger, without knowing whether it will fire. People usually bring it up as an example of extreme risk-taking, sheer recklessness, or psychological, sorry, I always say the P, because we say the P, so I always say the P, psychological pressure. In pop culture, it symbolizes playing chicken with death, testing your luck, or being pushed into a state of utter desperation. Where the phrase actually came from is still up for debate. Some link it to Russia's dueling culture, others see it as a product of romanticizing dangerous games in criminal circles. Back at university, I only ever came across it as a literary or historical term. In real life, I really hope nobody I know has ever actually tried it. I stared at the revolver, unable to understand what Ray wanted from me. The metal in his hand seemed to pull at my gaze, and then, in a sudden flash, a familiar image blazed before my eyes. The metallic snap of a pistol, a slide in the half-dark, the sharp crack of a gunshot, instant searing pain, and something hot spreading across my back. Everything inside me clenched, my breath caught, and for a moment it felt as if I were dying all over again, right here in this room. Yes, I think it makes more sense for a person to hold a revolver than actually a pistol, because a revolver gives you a conscience that you only have 6 shots. With a pistol, it's not like that because you can actually throw more. But you know. The idea of like injuring or killing a person, it's something that it's conscious, so if you would have a gun that would allow you to actually have less shots, it would make you more conscious about what you were doing, so I think it would make more sense to actually hold a pistol than a revolver, honestly, although I'm not into like those weapon things, okay? Like, I'm in Europe. We have another way of thinking about those things, so yeah. But I think it would make you more conscious about it because you only had like 6 shots, you know. I mean, you could always put more. But what I'm saying is like, imagine you only had like those 6 and you could not, you did not carry any more bullets. So yeah, I mean, you had to be conscious about what you were doing, you know. I gritted my teeth, but my hands started to shake. It felt as though if I touched the gun, I'll be dragged back into the reality of the night when everything had been cut short. My heart hammered wildly, less from fear of Ray than from the animal, almost physical terror swelling inside me with every new glance at the gun. A cold sweat broke over me. In that moment, I was ready to scream not at him, but at whatever force kept dragging me back to my own death again and again. Every nerve in my body was stretched out, and I wanted only one thing, to hurl that damn revolver as far away as possible so I wouldn't have to remember how life ended when I shot a range out. At that moment, the red-headed guy behind him frowned. Ray, you're harsh, sure, but forcing a helpless girl to play games like this. His voice was fairly calm, but it carried that one unmistakably human note that cut through this insane spectacle. Shut up, Dan. Her father almost got you killed. Forgot already? Besides, he flicked his gaze towards me and lifted my chin with his fingertips, forcing me to look at him, as if reminding everyone exactly who they were talking about. Don't compare her to ordinary girls. Born into a criminal family, she takes on all responsibility and risk whether she wants to or not. He leaned in even closer and fixed me with that stare again. Pull the trigger or I'll put a bullet in you myself. His voice dropped low and serious. There wasn't even a hint that he was joking. So this is like, this choice will have consequences, or you shoot or you don't. I stared at a heavy, cold, terrifyingly real revolver. I didn't even realize at first how it had ended up in my hands. My fingers trembled so badly that the grip kept slipping in my palm, fear locking every muscle in my body. I don't know if this is going to give us a bad ending. I'm just like, whatever, we'll do it again, you know. Let's just see where it goes. Sorry. I think I need some water. Because, like, this one is a lot of, has a lot of narrative. It's more monologues, but yeah, it's a lot. I actually, let me tell you, I prefer the monologues to just the narration, especially in these types of visual novels. It's like, I think it makes more sense to me that if they want us to immerse in the thing, narration is just like, you are reading a book. Do you understand? It's more like, I'm just reading a book in here. While when you have like this type of more like monologue kind of thing, like thinking about things, it feels more fitting into a real visual novel. So because it gives you also the feelings that the protagonist is having and how she's looking at things around her, you know, like I think it makes more sense than just like, and there was like a chair in there and you know, like those narrative descriptions of things. It's like I don't like it as much. I like it when I'm reading a book, okay? Like when you're reading a book is something else. For here, I don't like it as much. My heart wasn't beating so much as battering at my ribs from the inside, and my breath came in short, ragged gulps. I pressed the barrel to my temple, but I couldn't force myself to pull the trigger. Everything inside me was screaming, don't do it, this isn't a movie, I could really die. Even if the odds are only 1 in 6, that chance is still there. I was shaking so badly I could barely breathe, and at some point I just dropped the revolver to the floor and froze, cowering in on myself as if I could somehow make myself smaller disappear. At that moment, a red-headed guy stepped out from behind Ray. I thought his name was Dan. "That's enough, Ray. You've gone too far. Stop it. She's already been through enough." His sharp voice cut through the silence. There was something alive and human in it. Ray only clicked his tongue in content and waved him off. "Do whatever you want with her. I'm not interested in this boring girl anymore." He was already turning towards the door, but then, as if remembering something, he looked back. "Actually, no. Better leave her here for now. She might still come in handy as a bargaining chip." A term you often run into in history, politics, and economics, and sometimes in crime dramas or the news. It doesn't always have anything to do with actual money. In a figurative sense, a bargaining chip is a person, object, or asset that's used to push someone else's agenda or as leverage in negotiations. It's someone or something people are ready to sacrifice for the sake of a bigger goal, a concession, or a profit. Usually the person who ends up as bargaining chip doesn't get to choose their own fate. Other people just move them around, trade them, or use them at the right moment to get something in return. "Dan, take her upstairs, let her catch her breath." The numbness suddenly shoved all the panic inside, and I just collapsed to my knees, staring at the floor. Everything around me blurred, and my hands slipped limply down my sides. I couldn't scream or cry. I just sat there listening to my own ragged breathing and the rush of blood in my ears. If I'm pronouncing things in a bad way, you already know. I'm always like this. It's me. Yeah, but I still think like I try to do a pretty good job, but sometimes there are even times that I know how to pronounce it, but like during that moment I just forget about it, and I'm like, how do I pronounce this? I forgot. All there was left inside me was a terrible, exhausting emptiness, as if everything within me had burned itself to ash. Dan wrapped an arm around my shoulders, gentle and brotherly, and helped me to my feet. His hand was trembling a little. I felt a cautious, uncertain warmth I had never expected to find in this hell. "You are safe now. Get some rest. Everything's going to be all right." I barely registered the words he was saying. But he supported me carefully without asking unnecessary questions and led me out of the room step by step, as if afraid I might collapse again. I didn't resist, just walked beside him, barely aware of myself or the voices behind us. I remembered almost nothing of how Dan led me down the hallway. The fog in my head refused to clear. I could barely walk. My whole body felt foreign, drained of all strength. The smell of tobacco, smoke, spiced coffee, and something metallic surrounded me. It all blurred together, as if I weren't in the real world at all, but at the bottom of some half-waking nightmare. Rustling sounds and muffled voices seemed so distant, so unreal. All I could feel was his hand on my shoulder and the weight pressing against my chest. He opened one of the doors on the second floor and carefully guided me into a small, dimly lit room. There was almost no smell of smoke here, only cool air, the faint scent of old fabric, dust, and something else, something vaguely familiar. Dan carefully set me down on the bed. I sat down automatically and stared at a pair of pale, slender hands with a neat manicure, supposedly mine, yet so foreign, nothing like the ones I used to know. My mind was blank. He hesitated as if he didn't know what to say. "Don't hold it against Ray. He's not a bad person, just, well, a little hot-headed and too quick to get carried away." Silence settled between us again, but I couldn't force a single word out. You'll have to stay here for a while. I know this is all very different from. He trailed off, not knowing how to continue. Well, anyway, it is what it is. I didn't react, I just sat there, staring into the empty space in front of me. His words reached me through a thick cotton haze, stirring no emotion at all. You should get some rest. If you need anything, I'm right next door. He lingered for another second, looking at me with sympathy, and when no reply came, he quickly left, gently closing the door behind him. I couldn't move for a long time. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the mattress, and stared at my hands. Time moved strangely. Maybe a minute had passed, or maybe several hours. The fog in my head slowly began to lift. I took a deep breath, felt the cool air, then slowly looked around. Yeah, when I was skipping, I got into this part and I couldn't I was clicking and nothing would do nothing. And where did I click at that? I was able, I think only my head would fit through it, assuming I could even get it open. The dim light filtered through the dusty glass made the room feel even more miserable. Yeah. And I think it was in here, right? I was already about to look away when my gaze caught on something strange. In the far corner, where the dust had gathered in a thick layer, lay a crumpled newspaper. How did that get in here? It looked as though a stray draft had simply blown it into the room. I stepped closer to the newspaper and bent down to get a better look. Printed in large letters on the grayish paper was the date April 12, 1925, Sunday edition, Houston, Texas. Sunday edition. A Sunday edition is a special weekly issue of a newspaper that comes out once a week, usually on Sunday. These issues are usually much thicker and have more variety inside. On top of the usual news, you get long analytical pieces, essays, interviews, illustrated features, short stories, plus all kind of entertainment and educational sections. Unlike daily newspapers, a Sunday edition is meant to be read slowly and without rushing. People often take it home, read it over breakfast, or flip through it during the day when they actually have some free time. In the university library, the Sunday papers were always the chunky ones, sometimes several times thicker than weekday issues. They are often used for archives and thematic research, because they let you see not just news, but also what people were reading, what they were into, and how they actually lived at a particular moment in time. In plain terms, it's not some special kind of newspaper. It's just a regular weekly bundle of materials, the same type you would find in any big city of the early 20th century. I don't know how it is like in your countries, but like in here, we are still very heavy with the newspapers. Yeah, people still like them quite a lot. I mean, most people are going more like digital nowadays, but you still have, I would say, like, you still have like a lot of people consuming the newspapers. And of course, like the ones that sell the most are the ones that you have like in a day-to-day basis kind of thing, with news. And then you have like one that it's kind of like this one, but it's not on Sunday. It comes out at usually like the end of Friday. So most people actually usually get it on a Saturday. So they pass like the weekend reading that one. And that one is more like the Sunday edition, like they are saying in here. But the ones that sell the most are like the daily newspaper ones. And of course, the soccer ones, because the soccer in here is like something, So yeah, those like sell a ton. Yeah, but we are still very heavy with the newspapers in here. Yeah, it still sells quite a lot. People like that. I barely had time to grasp what I was looking at before everything inside me turned cold. April 12, 1925. Yeah, I'm saying this because when I was in America, I didn't notice. I didn't notice like people reading newspapers. But maybe it was like the place where I was, so I cannot talk about it. What does that mean? I went still staring at the date. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Some kind of a cruel joke. But the paper looks brand new. I sifted through my last memories. No, I remember it clearly. For me, everything ended in New York on April 15, 2025. And here, the very roaring 20s. A nickname historians and journalists used for the 1920s. What historians and journalists used to call the 1920s in the US and Europe. It was a wild decade of rapid cultural, economic, and technological growth after World War I, usually associated with jazz, fast-growing cities, and the birth of mass culture and a booming nightlife. Big cities were expanding, skyscrapers were going up, and new kinds of entertainment appeared: movies, radio, phonographs. Everyday life changed too. Cars became fashionable, women went for short haircuts, new dress styles, and bold makeup. The word roaring hits at that overall feeling of freedom, sharp change, and all the messy cultural contradictions packed into the decade. Basically, everything was getting louder, faster, and just a bit out of control. Guys in a strange cowboy get-ups, all that talk about smuggling, all those guns. The full picture was slowly, inevitably coming together in my head, piece by piece. This just can't be real. Did I really get thrown 100 years into the past? Into another century? I slowly looked myself over as if I were seeing this body for the first time. Long platinum hair with a soft pink ombre fell over my shoulders in gentle waves. From French ombre, meaning shaded or gradient. A term from hairdressing and fashion, it's a smooth transition of color from one shade to another, most often from dark to light or the other way around. In modern hairstyles, ombre is used to create the effect of sun-kissed or multi-tone hair, where one color gradually melts into another along the length of the strands. P.S. In everyday life and on social media, people pretty much call any noticeable color transition on hair or fabric ombre, even if the shades are almost the same. The simple black dress felt foreign, nothing like something I would ever choose. And to tell the truth, I had hardly ever worn dresses in the first place. The body felt too fragile, too light. I ran a palm over my face. The features were different, finer, more delicate. Yeah, I think we kind of like, as women, let me tell you, as women, I think we are kind of like losing the thing of like wearing dresses. And I was thinking about it like the other day. So like this year, I decided to change some things. And I still feel like I like to have trousers or like shorts, let's say it, during the summer. But I've been like changing my winter clothes to like warm dresses. And like last year, I felt not last year, this year during the winter. I felt very good about it. Like I thought, like it's been such a long time since I wore like a real dress, and I was like feeling like, yeah, it's been so long that I think I forgot about it. I forgot like how cool it is, to actually like as a woman to wear a dress. I think we've been so much into this thing of like the jeans and trousers and all of it, but it's so cool that we can wear dresses. It's so cool. And I think we kind of forget about it. So yeah. And when I accidentally breathed a few words out loud, my voice sounded unrecognizable, clear and soft. Horror was rising inside me, tangled with a dawning, impossible realization. Who am I now? Whose body did I end up in? Why can't I remember anything except my own past? I remember fragments of what those guys had been saying: Cortez, daughter, a pretty doll with no soul. A bargaining chip echoed through my head again. And for the first time, I allowed myself to think something that sent a chill down my spine. What if I really had been reborn in someone else's body? What if the real owner of this body had died from shock when she saw her father die? I remembered reading once that under extreme stress, a person's personality can actually die if the mind simply can't withstand it. I mean, thank God I never knew someone like this, like people that would just completely shut up, you know. Death of the self, a term that comes up a lot in psychology and neuroscience. Sometimes you see it in criminology and medical articles too. It's not about the literal death of the body, it's a deep psychological process. After a massive shock or trauma, a person can lose their personality and everything that used to make them who they are: their character, memories, habits, typical reactions. The body keeps going physiologically, but the person becomes apathetic and responsive, completely cut off from reality. In the most severe cases, someone can look alive but be essentially an empty shell. Their actions go on autopilot. Their will disappears and any real emotion just burns out. In literature and art, states like these are often called death of the soul or losing yourself. Sometimes the cause is severe trauma, loss, overwhelming fear, or a brutal collapse of the familiar world. In psychiatry, if I'm not completely mixing things up, a similar condition is called catatonia. Physiologically, the person is still alive, but their self may be lost or frozen somewhere out of reach for an unknown amount of time. In less extreme cases, recovery is still possible, but it takes time, support, and sometimes something truly radical to give them a new reason to live. However, judging by how this body feels from the inside, I seriously doubt that's what happened here. I can't catch even the faintest trace of another consciousness in it. Yeah, I never met someone that would be like in this state, but I already passed by a situation having an acquaintance doing something that I never thought that person would do, which was like, it was like a colleague that I had, and he was like very positive, very friendly, everything, and like suddenly in the like he didn't appear to work, and suddenly in the news we heard of someone that threw acid to the girlfriend because he found her with someone else. He threw acid and jumped into in front of the train, so he died too. And I was like, what? When they told me who the person was, I was like, no way, like no way. Like a person that you would never ever think it would flip. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I was shocked. I was honestly shocked with that situation. I was like, no way. What, that person? Like, he was here with us. He was like very friendly. He was like always like positive, always like, and I don't know. I have no idea. He flipped totally. Like, yeah, that situation I passed. Yeah, and it was like very weird, honestly. Yeah, because like you never know. Yeah, you never know what the other person really is or what the other person is passing by. It's just, I don't know. Like sometimes you have like those that you see like, oh, this person is like very depressive or something. Maybe it's passing by something, or. But he was like, you know, when you have like that funny guy, and suddenly like the next day you hear like and you've been with that person for a long time, and suddenly like the news, like there's like a situation like that, you're like, what? Like, what happening here? Like, I think like the person needs to be in a complete, I don't know, stress or something. I don't know, to just flip like this, I don't know, whatever. And then the body becomes like an empty vessel. Maybe I'm here because the previous owner couldn't withstand the psychological blow. That explanation made more than enough sense to me. And even if it wasn't true, all I could do was accept it as fact. All at once, I felt terribly sorry for that girl, even though I didn't even know her name. But even more strongly, I felt that this body belonged to me and me alone now. And if that was the case, if I'd truly been given this strange second life, then I was going to use it for myself. A painful sense of relief washed over me. For the first time, I felt some kind of footing beneath me, however fragile. If I'm alone in this body, in this terrifying world, then I need to survive no matter what. I won't let myself become invisible again or fade into the background the way I used to. This time, I'll live this life to the fullest. I went over every moment in my mind, waking up despair, fear, race, cruel game, and then support. I have to change. I have to become stronger than I used to be. This is my chance. I won't let myself dissolve into fear. I won't be a victim. It doesn't matter that everyone around me is a stranger or that I know nothing about the girl who used to own this body. This is my life now, and I'm the only one who gets to decide what it will be. And then it suddenly hits me that if this really was America at the start of the last century, if none of this was a dream or madness, then all the baggage of the years I've lived through, every lecture that had once seemed pointless, every word I'd crammed before exams suddenly became something more. Maybe all those boring lists of dates, those long nights over textbooks, and those endless conversations about top politics and wars would turn out to be my very own superpower. I mean, you getting back into this time, it would also mean that you would probably will pass by 2 world wars too. Like, oh god, that's hard too. Yeah, that's hard. I never thought I would use that word about myself, but it looks like I really do have something like a superpower now. Yeah, although she's in America. Yeah, if she was like in here where I am, it would be something, Yeah, you had your things during those times too, yeah, you had your things. In comics, manga, and movies, a superpower usually means flying, shooting lasers from your eyes, reading people's minds, or at least turning into a cat whenever you feel like it. In reality, it turned out to be way more mundane. My superpower is a pile of university knowledge, endless lectures, sleepless nights with books, and a set of facts and dates that used to feel completely pointless. I suddenly realized I know a ton of things that here in this time had not even been invented yet. I remember what the world is going to look like 100 years from now. I can roughly predict which wars will break out, who will become famous, and who will vanish without a trace. For someone else, that is just boring trivia. For me, now it's almost a weapon I can use to try and survive. It's a strange feeling. My whole previous life, I thought I was completely ordinary. It turns out that sometimes useless knowledge can become your most valuable advantage. Yeah, sometimes when you have like an isekai experience. Just like that. I guess this is what my second chance looks like. A chance to finally use everything I worked so hard to learn at least once in my life for something real. But it's just as important not to forget that all this special knowledge can turn into not only salvation but also danger. One careless word, one odd piece of advice, one mention of something nobody here has heard of yet is enough to make people suspicious. In this era, being too well informed, it's not just strange, it's almost a verdict. It's way too easy to end up in other people's eyes as a lunatic, an imposter, or even worse, a witch. I'm the only person in this world who knows the future, no one else does. I still didn't understand how to use that, but the thought alone stirred a strange, uneasy, almost pleasant sense of power inside me. I knew that would happen to the economy. I knew what would happen to the economy in a few years. I knew about wars that hadn't even begun yet. About technologies. It's not coming today. Like, remember yesterday with which word was it? Miscellaneous or something. It was something like that. About technologies that still had yet to be invented. Yes, sometimes like it doesn't come out, but it's funny that even like words in my own language, sometimes like you get like it's not coming, it's not coming. You try to say them and it's just like rolling there and not coming. About people who would go down in history, but were still unknown to the world. All that knowledge, which had seemed so useless in my old life, could become a real weapon here. All that remained was to make sure this reality was truly connected to the world I came from. For the first time since waking up in this nightmare, I felt something like hope. Lost in that stream of thoughts, I only noticed in passing that it was already deep into the night outside. My head throbbed and my body felt as if it had been scorched from within. I lay back on the bed slowly and carefully, as though any sudden movement might shatter the fragile balance that was keeping me afloat. The mattress beneath my back felt stiff, but after everything I'd been through, even this miserable bed felt like salvation. I pulled the thin coverlet over myself. It smelled faintly of something unfamiliar. Exhaustion came in waves, but my mind refused to settle. Too many thoughts kept spinning in my head, and too many questions still demanded answers. But exhaustion was winning. My eyelids grew heavy and my breathing slowed. My last thought before sleep took me flashed through my mind, clear and sharp. I won't let them break me. I'm not some trophy. I'll be the heroine of my own story, even if I have to become a completely different person for it. I still didn't know who all those people around me were, but I could already feel that each of them was going to play a far greater role in my new life than it might have seemed at first glance. The faces of the four guys surfaced in my memory one after another. For some reason, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was supposed to be someone else. They were all part of some larger game, one whose rules I still didn't understand. But my intuition told me those encounters hadn't been random. In this world, where I'll become a prisoner of circumstance, each of them would become either an ally or an enemy, or perhaps both at once. That strange premonition wouldn't leave me, as if the threads of fate had already tangled together and bound all of us into one tied knot. And now I would have to learn how to unravel those threads without letting them strangle me. So Act 1, a deal with the devil.